Imagine being an all-powerful demigod, descended from the creator of your entire race. You're the biggest, the baddest, and nothing can stop you. You're at the top of your A. But then, a couple of fish rain down from the ceiling and murderize you, only for the bot responsible to take over your role and proclaim himself the savior of the Cybertronian race. Yeah, it sure sucks to be the Primes, doesn't it? Hey guys, the Fire Brothers here. It's just me. My brother couldn't be here today because he's building a life-size Unicron. So needless to say, he's not gonna be here for a while. Just like my dad. But anyways, these are the jokes. I hope you guys are enjoying them. So, the Primes are the subject of much speculation and discussion when it comes to Transformers 1. While a lot of people love their designs and people like really simp for Megatronus' Prime's design, which I have to agree, it's also very sex. At the same time, the Prime's performance in the movie can leave a lot to be desired. With the exception of Cybertron, we never got to see them actually fight much in the movie, and the one scene they had to themselves, they all kind of just, died. And this has led some people feeling a bit underwhelmed, because the Primes, like I said at the beginning, are basically demigods. It's like they're not supposed to be, like Zeus. Think of them like Hercules, that type of, god. And for them to all be killed off by what we can describe as fish people is honestly a bit underwhelming. But in this video, I kind of wanted to answer that question and talk about why the Primes died so easily. Are the Quintessons too strong, or are the Primes too weak? Because I feel like there's a lot of nuance into this conversation that gets lost in translation. And since, in all honesty, I'm a bit sick of talking about the Transformers 1 box office, because at this point it's sad, I'd rather talk about aspects from the movie, which honestly I find to be way more interesting. So yeah, we're doing that today. But before we go on, reminder, I'm selling stuff on eBay, some Transformers figures I no longer want, mostly to make space for my shelf. If you want any of them, link to the Google Drive that has all the listings will be listed in the comments down below. I'm starting to sell off quite a few of them, like Crossers, Double Dealer. There's a few other ones that I still haven't sold, like Grimlock, Apex Armor from Transformers Prime, and a bunch of others. So if any of them interest you, feel free to buy them. And if you want me to sign them, I totally will. Some people ask me to do that. It still feels a little weird doing that, because I don't think I'm anyone relevant enough to sign stuff, but okay, if that's what you want. But anyways, now let's go back to the main topic, the Primes. So before we throw any accusations here about the Quintessons needing a nerf or the Primes needing a buff, I think it's best if we first take a good hard look at the facts. We know that the Primes receive a transmission from Sentinel Prime, the principal aide of the Primes. He told them that there was going to be a meeting of Quintesson commanders and their elimination could quicken the end of the war. The Primes, fully believing Sentinel, thought that this was such an urgent matter that they all went in there by themselves without the High Guard or anyone else, so as to not put more Cybertronian lives in danger. They all went into this completely maxed out. Star Saber in hand, Requiem Blaster, Force of Solus Prime, Alchemist Prime's lenses, that kind of stuff. All the Primes were there, but as soon as they arrived, they were ambushed by an army of Quintessons. In fact, they barely had enough time to react, and when they did, they were already being blasted by a whole army. In fact, the movie emphasizes just how exaggerated this was, like it took a whole army to even dent the Primes, and even then, the Primes still tanked those shots. Like, none of them seem severely damaged, and the first thing they do after being bombarded for a little bit is they spread out to divert their fire. Nexus Prime is the one that takes the first shot, and he disintegrates a couple of Quintessons before 3 of them launch themselves. And this is a very quick and you'll miss it moment, but when they launch themselves, we see the 3 of them are aiming for what it appears to be Onyx Prime, who's ready to tangle. We also see Vector Prime ready to react. He has his swords in hand, and we can tell that this is Vector Prime because he has like that
big hole in the chest.
But when we see more Quintessons land, we can see that one of them manages to connect a hit with Leech Maximo. And yes, look, I know he looks a lot like Prima, but it's not him. Why did it make Leech Maximo green is beyond me, but yeah. We see that Leech gets overwhelmed and several other Quintessons get ready to gang up on him while he's down. We then cut to Megatronus, who honestly performs the best out of everyone, taking down several Quintesson squadrons all by himself and looking good while doing it. And the next time we see the Primes, we see that Prima, Nexus, Onyx, Megatronus, Solus, Alpha Trion, who were watching this through his perspective, and Vector Prime are still standing. Oh, also almost forgot, Quintus Prime is also still alive, he's right here. Nexus does a good job of keeping some of the oncoming swarming Quintessons out of the way of the other primes, and I'll be honest, people like really on Nexus Prime, but he's doing actually quite a bit of work in this fight. He actually has a pretty decent kill count, especially in comparison to everyone else. And according to Alpha Triumph, victory was nearly theirs. Keep in mind that so far, while they got taken by surprise, the Primes are actually holding their own really well. With the exception of Leech Maximo, which might or might not be dead, everyone else is doing really okay. And Alpha Triumph seems to imply that yeah, they were actually gonna win that fight if they kept on going. But then we get our Judas moment, and of course, Sentinel betrays the Primes. He first kills off Nexus Prime by stabbing him through the back. First time. As soon as this happens, Megatronus turns around and he's momentarily shocked by the death of Nexus Prime. This little moment of weakness gets exploded as the Quintessons quickly overwhelm Megatronus Prime and pin him down, long enough for Sentinel to decapitate him. And next thing we see that Sentinel takes Nexus Prime's gun, and we know this is the gun because it looks exactly the same. Now granted, it could be an acid reuse, but we never see this particular type of gun be used again, so my guess is that this is probably Nexus Prime's gun. I mean, the man does steal his shield, so yeah, I could see that happening. And he blasts Solus Prime into a pile of dead Quintessons, where she gets impaled by the stinger of one of them, immediately killing her. He then takes aim at Zeta Prime, but you can see he is visibly shocked at what just happened. He was shot straight in the chest, point blank, no time to react, and then Sentinel looms over him, ending his life with a blast through the chest before taking the Matrix and it vanishing. So we know who did it, why they did it, and how they did it. Which leads us to the main question of this video. Were the Primes weak, or were they just caught at a bad time? Now, in all honesty, when you take a look at that fight, it's actually not as one-sided as people make it out to be. Alpha Tron's dialogue made it very clear that if the Primes just kept on fighting and had not been interrupted, they were totally gonna win. Now, they did lost a few members like Leech Maximo, but then again, Leech is not exactly known for being the strongest of the Primes. And keep in mind that we also didn't see everyone get murdered. We only saw Megatronus, Leech, Nexus, Solus, and Zeta Prime died on screen. Conveniently enough, a lot of other Primes were missing and we didn't see how they died, like Vector Prime, Quintus Prime, which is a very interesting one. It's the subject of much, speculation, especially because of his relation to the Quintessons and literally everyone else. But before we talk about the ones who are missing, let's talk about the ones who we did saw die. Now, Nexus Prime was killed by surprise. And I mean, guys, come on, when it comes to surprise attacks, everyone's vulnerable to them. I mean, even Goku. And keep in mind that Sentinel, while not a Prime and not as powerful as the others, was the principal aid of the Primes. He spent a lot of time with them. So if someone was gonna know the Prime's weaknesses, he was gonna be the most likely candidate. He very quickly dispatched of Nexus Prime, then purposely took his gun to stand a chance against the other Primes. Just keep in mind, that same gun was capable and strong enough to kill Zeta Prime in just 2 shots. And we all know that the Primes have crazy type of relics that get them crazy power, like the Star Saber and Requiem Blaster. So Zeta Prime using a relic of the Primes to take out the Primes is something that doesn't speak too badly of the Primes. If anything, it emphasizes their power and by extension Nexus Prime's power to carry a blaster that powerful. However, I will admit that Solus and Leech probably had the worst showing, because I mean, well, Solus wasn't taken out by the blast itself, she was taken out by the spear of a random Quintesson trooper, and I feel like that's the part people have a problem with, because again, the Primes are supposed to be demigods, and she being taken out in such a quick way by a random father soldier weapon is honestly a bit insulting. And the less we say about Leech Maximo, the better. The thing is that we also didn't see all the Primes die, so we don't know how they die. But we do see some of their corpses later on. There's no hints as to like how they met their end. A lot of them are on the ground or blasted, like with faces of like despair and fear. And we don't really get a real indication of how they die. And I think the fact that we didn't see what exactly killed them, if it was Sentinel or the Quintessons, opens up a lot for the imagination. Keep in mind that Sentinel Prime and the Quintessons had time to prepare for this. This was something they've been planning for a long time. The Quintessons had basically unlimited resources, and the element of surprise was Sentinel Prime knew all the Prime's weaknesses. So I could very easily envision the Quintessons preparing their soldiers specifically to try and counter the Primes. I mean, Leech Maximo is a bit cowardly and not exactly much of a fighter, so they ganged up on him, taking him out really quickly. But it was Sentinel's betrayal that made most of the Primes distracted, gave the Quintessons that one moment for each of them to gang up on them and take them out. A lot of the Primes die off screen, and we do know that the fight wasn't over as soon as Sentinel Prime got the Matrix. Because again, Alpha Trion stayed conscious long enough to witness the Matrix dissipate before going into stasis. Because in his message, we see him reporting to the High Guard on the fact that Zeta Prime had fallen. So the fight did continue for a while longer, and again, the Quintessons had time to prepare. Maybe they brought in more troops, maybe they brought on different types of troops, specifically created to take down the Primes. Or hell, maybe they even used their giant warships to rain down hell on the Primes. And also, what I'm about to say is gonna sound like a bit of speculation, but the place where the Primes die is called Unicron's mouth. Now, I don't think this is supposed to be literally Unicron's mouth. I think it's just like, how people call certain caves like God's mouth or so on. Like, it's not literally God's mouth, it's just like how they named it. But I think the naming of the Prime's dead side as Unicron's mouth was very intentional. And look, I don't know if they had this in mind. I could be completely wrong about this, but this is how I will handle the whole situation of the Primes dead and their power scaling in terms of the lore. What I would do is that I would say that since the Quintessons had time to prepare, then they probably, made the Primes go to the most suspicious looking cave of all time and they laced it with Dark Energon. Because we know that Dark Energon has the property of, weakening any Cybertron that comes into contact with them, even if it's minimal exposure. Unless they develop an immunity to it like Transformers Prime Megatron, Dark Energon can sort of work as like a kryptonite. The effects is not as dramatic as, kryptonite on Superman. But we have seen Optimus Prime struggle or getting weaker as he continued to fight in Transformers Prime while being close to Dark Energon. So a similar thing could happen with the Primes, maybe, as soon as they arrived at Unicron's mountain and they were waiting to ambush the Quintesson commanders, the Dark Energon took its effect. And as soon as they were weak enough, the Quintessons jumped in, ganged them, but they were still not strong enough to fight off the Primes, so Sentinel had to swoop in and actively betray them, which caused a lot of them to slip up and ended up on them dying because they did not expect that betrayal. And that's just it. There's a lot of things that happen off screen that we don't know just yet, like where did the Quintessons came from? Did Quintus Prime create them? What do the Quintessons need the Energon for? How did the other Primes die? There's a lot of stuff that the movie leaves open to imagination. Maybe it will be an answer in a Transformers 2 if for some miracle it does end up happening. But I feel like a lot of people are really sleeping on Quintesson ingenuity because the Quintessons are strong. They've been fighting the Primes for a long time and now they have the aid of someone who knows them, on a personal level. When people think about war, people usually think about, guns and bullets and, who had the strongest army, the most powerful military and stuff like that. But no one ever thinks about the intelligence that when it comes to fighting a war. Info and data can be a game changer in war. And the Quintessons just so happen to have that when fighting the Primes. And in all honesty, despite them all dying here and there, I feel like all the reasons I gave are valid enough points as to how I could see, a couple of, really powerful demigods be taken down by basically space fish. I don't feel like the Primes were weak in the movie. I feel like they were all really over strong, with the exception of Leech Maximo. I mean, come on. Like, Quintessons didn't need a master plan against him. But they just got unlucky because they fired an opponent in an unfamiliar terrain where the Quintessons had all the cards. And even then, the Quintessons were still about to lose if it wasn't for Sentinel Prime. So, to conclude this, I have to say, no, I don't think the Primes were weak in this movie. I think if you take a closer look at the way they died and the factors against them, I think the Primes, if anything, actually performed really well against the Quintesson opponents. It's just that they were dealt a bad hand and they tried to do their best with what they had. But yeah guys, that's pretty much it for this video. And I'm not gonna lie, making this video was actually really fun because I had to take a look at that fight scene all over again and consider all the different factors. Because before going into this video, I thought that the Primes were actually really weak and this was gonna be, my video roasting them. But then I started to look more in depth into some things and I'm like, we never saw how Prima died, we never saw how others died, and the Quintessons did have all the cars. So I feel like this fight doesn't speak as badly of the Primes and it speaks better as to how the Quintessons are, how dangerous of opponents they can be, while also showcasing that despite that the Primes still came really close to victory. Maybe you have a different argument or a different theory as to why the Primes were taken out so quickly, or maybe you disagree with some of my observations. I would love to hear all about that in the comments down below. So I'll pass on the question to you guys. Do you guys think that the Primes were really weak in the movie, or do you think that the Quintessons were just too strong? And do you think that they were portrayed in a way that was satisfactory? because I know a lot of people really do love the Prime lore. I honestly really love the Prime lore in the 13. So seeing them die kind of really quickly was a bit, you know, disappointing, but I completely understand why it was done, and I sort of appreciate the way the movie subtly implied that they were still max overpowered while still losing that fight. So yeah, but anyways guys, that's it for this video. Hopefully you all enjoy. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Do the annoying YouTuber stuff the algorithm likes so much. And I will see you guys in the next video. Stay safe, guys. Anyways guys, before we go, shout out to our incredible sex tier Patreons: Steve Martin, Primeburst 611, Inferno 65, Winslow Lopes Hightower, Scout, Crowley 666, Silverman, King Sparta, Super Formers Hedgehog, Xavier the God, Stage Productions, Scrub Lordo, and Predaking Hunter Plays. And an equally great shout out to our channel members: Shin Leviathan Dragon, TF Cypher, and Laser Sin. Thank you guys so much for donating, it's much appreciated. Link to my Patreon and channel membership will be in the description down below. Consider donating because you get a few perks and see some videos early, even collab with me in some cases, the list goes on. But anyways guys, thank you for your support, helps to keep the channel going, and I will see you all in the next video. Stay safe guys!